Welcome to Between Views. I'm your host, Alec Koski. This podcast aims to cast light on and connect you with inspirational people, identify them as potential mentors in your journey, and share their wisdom with the world. In this episode, we go live on Zoom to West Virginia for the third and final part of our conversation with the inspiring entrepreneur, website designer, public speaker, and traveller, Sophia Balanay. I feel like when you take on any kind of project or business, call it what it is, there's always something to be done. There's always something to be done. And sometimes once you get onto the cogs turning and you sort of lean into this business or this sport you're trying to learn, or whatever hobby it is, your brain is constantly off in the future about like what's next. What's the next thing that I got to do? Oh, I can do this, I could do that. How do you focus on staying in the present while you're working on your goals? Because that just causes you to feel anxious. It causes you to go into more of a shutdown mode, and you're less creative, you're less receptive to new information. And you can't even really focus on what's happening when you're not at work because you're too busy thinking about, I've got to do this thing. Like, yes. How do you personally deal with that? Because I think that's a good thing for people to know.
Oh man. That's a big one for me. It's for a long time, really. And part of that, I actually cut off caffeine now because it's reduced that anxiety of thinking about all of those things. But that was a huge one, was cutting off caffeine.
What was the difference?
It was really, it was like, okay, you need to think about this, or if something comes up in your environment and whatever it is that makes you think, oh, I need to make dinner tonight. What am I gonna make for dinner tonight? And do we have this stuff? Do I need to go to the store? All of those like running thoughts. It was almost like those tangents didn't happen as much or like as strongly in a way where like, oh, I have to think about what I'm gonna do for dinner that night. It's like, oh, okay, that happened. Okay, let's focus. But because of the time blocking as well, I've been really good about like, hey, I'm getting a tangent on social media and I'm starting to like lose myself a little bit, and then I have to bring myself back. Okay. And with my time blocking, sometimes I set timers just to help me. Like if I really can't focus or I can't get in the zone about anything, I'll set a 5-minute timer and be like, okay, I have to focus for 5 minutes. That's it. But then it ends up being that I'll focus for a longer period of time than just 5 minutes.
Using a timer to reset your focus. That's clever. So
I don't know where I picked that one up actually, but I heard I know I've heard it from somewhere. And then also I learned the 5-second rule from a book that I read as well. That was
5-second rule.
If you're struggling to do something, you just count backwards from 5. And once you hit 0, then you have to go and do it. You have to just get up as soon as those 5 seconds end, because then your brain is going to start thinking about all of the ways to justify why you should just stay in bed or stay scrolling on social media. But within those 5 seconds, if you can just pop right up, then you're good. And that's worked a lot for me as well.
That's kind of like
getting up.
Kind of like a habit of training yourself to recognize when you've drifted off. And once you catch that, give yourself 5 seconds to get back to what you're doing really quick. And just learning that once you give yourself that countdown, that means I'm getting up, I'm going for it.
Right. But when I get tired, that's when I use the 5 minutes. I'm like, okay, I'm so tired, I don't want to do this, or like I just really can't focus. I'll be like, okay, just focus for 5 minutes and then it'll be fine. And it always has been. That one's always worked for me.
Okay, perfect. So the 5-second rule and the 5-minute timer to reset focus, 2 very useful tools people could use. I'm still stuck on this caffeine let go, because I've thought about it so many times before. I just love that morning coffee. It's so tasty. It smells good and it feels good. And like, I feel like a lot of people, when you said I gave up caffeine, probably just turned the podcast straight off. Like, no, This
To
is
be fair,
witchcraft.
I didn't give up coffee. I still drink decaf coffee all the time
Okay, so you
because
still
I
sort of
love
kept
the
the
taste of
experience.
coffee.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Okay, well, how long did it take you to drop caffeine?
To be honest, I probably had it a lot easier than other people because I had to give it up for a surgery that I had.
Ah, forced
I
into
got,
it.
yes, and I couldn't have caffeine for 2 months. Oh no, 3 months actually. I couldn't have decaf for 2 months and then a regular caffeine after 3 months. And when I had regular caffeine after that, my head just started pounding so bad the first
Really?
time. And then I got so anxious and I only had like a small bit of it and filled the rest with milk because I was like, I don't know how this is gonna go.
Yeah.
And it was horrible.
It's definitely something that people get used to. It's something that people have just gotten used to and like feel like it makes their day better. But would you say that once you've kicked it and gone away from it, what's your general energy like?
It was good. I mean, definitely because of my surgery, my energy was really low. But as soon as I started exercising again, it just went up. And there's going to be times, obviously, during the day when I get tired and unfocused, but that's where like I have to take breaks and just kind of like move or like shake out my body or move in some kind of way, and it wakes
Mm,
me up more. But
yeah.
movement exercise is always what wakes me up.
So it's kind of like replacing caffeine with a little bit of extra blood flow, getting up, moving around. You know, it could be something as simple
Right.
as a little walk outside, put your feet on the grass, swing your arms around, and then you're kind of back
Yeah.
in action. Okay, so living life without caffeine going very well, managing it.
It's going pretty well. Yeah, I think so. Though I
Okay.
do like miss the regular coffee products. That's why I only drink decaf, but it's not as satisfying like if I try to have if I try to have coffee ice cream, I can't really because they
Ah,
always
true.
got caffeine in it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I love coffee ice cream.
Yes. So in the end, that has helped you manage that idea that so many things need to happen and there's always things in the future you got to do. And that's kind of more or less out the window nearly with the disappearance of caffeine.
Yes. For the most part, I'd say.
That's
But
intriguing.
if there is anything left, like when I do get nervous, or not nervous, but anxious about something, because I mean, I work at home. I get up and I'll try, if Zach's home, I'll just like go and hug him for a little bit and then come back and be like, okay, because I know you've only met Zach once, but he's such a very present person and doesn't
Mhm.
like to think about the future, whereas I'm complete opposite. I think about the future all the time.
Yeah.
And him just being like, okay, well, what are you doing right now? What are you working on right now? And talking to him about it helps a lot. And he's definitely, I think, helped in terms of adding the perspective of being more present.
Yes. So I guess that makes me think of relationships and not just romantic relationships, but like relationships in general. The How would you say that the relationships in your life, be it, you know, partner, friends, family, colleagues, how have they affected the your business and your life?
I've been very lucky to have a lot of people who support my business, and
Mm,
even when I didn't make a lot of money, they always were like, well, you can do it because I have a big entrepreneurial family as well. My grandmother has her business. My many of my uncles are subcontractors, and so the mindset was always there. I think in terms of people who didn't as support me as much, they still loved me a lot and showed that they did. So even if they're like, okay, well, you should be making money right now, maybe you should get a job, maybe you should get a part-time job.
mm,
And And if I like consistently said no, and I'm like, and I'm living by my ideals and by what I want to do, they eventually will support me. And they did. It took some time, but I think as long as you are secure and confident within yourself, it'll always come within the people around you because it always starts with yourself.
Of course, it does always start with yourself. I feel like that's a tricky thing to deal with though, when you go off and do something that's unique and individual and your own thing. People can't understand it often because they're not doing it. A lot of
Right.
people fall into the daily grind, into the regular and the normal of whatever your culture or society says that is. Um, how do you deal with that? So I guess I call it pressure of people being like, well, how come you don't have this type of job and
Hmm.
are you having a family soon? Are you da 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 da? How do you deal with those pressures of people who just want to see you look like they look?
To be honest, I think I've moved into my era of just not giving two flying Fs about what they think about it.
Yeah,
Um, and unfortunately, I do see a lot of that with the people that I grew up with. They're still at home in Hawaii and they're still like they have jobs and things like that. A lot of them come up to me and they're like, I couldn't afford to do what you do. And I'm like, I was broke for a long time and I still did
yeah,
what I do
yeah.
now.
Did you have zero
It's
money? Well, that's how you afford it. Yeah,
exactly.
it
It's
actually
all
doesn't cost
about
very much
the
to do what I do.
mindset. It
You have to
doesn't.
have
And I keep telling
$0.
people that. I keep telling people that and they still don't. It doesn't click. And I've learned that no matter how hard I try to fight to get somebody to understand the way that I'm thinking and that it could help them in every way if they just understood what I'm trying to say to them.
Yeah,
They don't get if they don't get it, they don't get it.
that's
And I
right.
can't keep fighting that.
No, 100% correct. And like, uh, no one really wants advice unless they've specifically seeking it like out or asked the question in the first place. So that's kind of like one reason I do this is because it's no one's asked for it, but if you go and look for it, it's right there. Here's the information.
Exactly.
This is the stuff that you might not necessarily get to tell people all the time. But now I'm kind of hoping that those very same people could go and listen to this and be like, oh, kind of get it now. And it's funny because it comes from this space, they might be like, oh, I see what she's saying. Like
Exactly.
it's
I mean,
your
I've
it's your
told
chance to share.
exactly. And I've told people that you were starting a podcast because I will listen and I know who and I know how you are and I know you as my friend. And so I'm always like, hey, like go and listen. If you have this kind of a similar kind of mindset, then go listen to his podcast and at least learn about the people because he's exactly where you're thinking about being in a way.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Um, all right. So I guess one of the last things I wanted to touch on today was one thing that I love and you love and lots of people love. And oh my gosh, this is I came across this. I just want to quickly bring up your Instagram again for people who are watching this video. I'll just try and describe it to you. Plus, I like being down in the corner. It's fun. So when I went through your reels, was it reels? I found that so you have all of your business content reels, but the ones that got the biggest hits were like fun things from travels.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's today. Like people love travel. People are desperate to see the world, especially after being locked down in COVID. Like these two here, just like bang straight out there. I think when you incorporate your travels into your business and your shared things on Instagram, people love seeing that. Like that is what is like eyes on these days.
Right.
How would you say that your travels have helped you in your journey so far? Because you've been all over. You've been to loads of places. Like if you look up here, you can even come and have a look if you're interested of following Sophie's journey. There's all these
lot of
trips here at the top. You like come and
yeah.
get inspired. Like if you want to find out where we met, you can click on the Manitou link here. Awesome camp in the US that we actually met at and both worked at for a few years. I'm still working there. Um,
Right.
but yeah, if you want to come and get inspired, come and check this out here. There's so much content on your
Thank
page.
you.
It's
I
awesome.
know I haven't even posted very much about our recent backpacking trip, and I have loads of stuff still coming out as well that I want to share.
Yeah.
But in terms of travel, it's I wouldn't say in terms of like a marketing standpoint that it's helped me a lot, but like the bigger impact for me was the people and cultures and learning what other people do in different lifestyles and different places and all of that. It's always about people for me. And I think
Mm.
we've talked about this before that we're very much introverts, but we love people so much that we will be extroverts for them.
Yes.
And I have really learned how to interact with those people in a way that I can bring back to my business, and it just brings in that unconditional love and respect for every person in every walk of life, and make them feel comfortable about wherever they are in their business or wherever
One,
they are in the world.
100%. It makes you see everyone is different and unique, and they're all people. They might be doing something different to you, but they're just doing the very best they can. They're all out there in the world trying to do the number one job that they can possibly do at being them. And I think that is one of the major utilities of travel, right? Is that you get to see that it's like, oh, people do things differently, and that is a-okay. Like it's totally fine for
Mhm.
me to go and do a totally random thing because everybody is.
Right. And
Yeah.
the things that you really learn from people, I'd say specifically from business, I always bring this up when people ask me about traveling and business, is that I will meet particular people. Like, I know you were one of the people that told me to go to Vietnam, I believe, or just to Southeast Asia. And when I was there, you know that there's so many people who are entrepreneurs. They all have their own little businesses, whether it's a little food cart or whether it's like they're selling things on their backs or whatever it might be. And some of those people, like when I was in Sapa, Vietnam, there was a woman who followed Zach, myself, and my sister from the bus, a 30-minute walk to our hostel, and would not give up until we bought something. And if we said no so many times, but then she would just start a conversation with us for just to say hello and practice her English or whatever it might be. But she did not give up one bit. She was like, okay, if you're going, can you promise to come out later and buy something later? And
Yeah.
then when we left that night, she was there.
So is that your business tactic? Do you just kind of follow people from door to door for the whole day until they sign up to your website?
No, but I do know that no is not always no right now, but it might be for some other time, you know?
Yes, yes. And I suppose that's where networking, staying in touch again, helpful. I guess one big
Exactly.
word that comes straight to mind there is persistence. Like that seemed a little overly persistent with her, but it's one of those things, hey, like that's an advertising like technique for sure, is like it just appears over and over again.
Right.
Here I am, here I am, here I am. And then you're like, that thing's been in my life so long, should probably just be in my life.
Yeah. Exactly. That's what I thought of too.
Yeah. I
I
actually
see it
call
more
it
and more every day.
I actually call it the KFC advertising campaign because like if you have ever watched Australian television, oh my gosh, there's not they have every single ad space has an ad. every single ad space has like a KFC ad, and I'm just like, what the heck's going on? Look, it just made its first appearance on Between Views. Look at that, easy peasy, you know. And then eventually there's that day, and you're like, I just need some greasy boys right now. I'm just gonna go down to. It's like a for me, it's like it's honestly like once a year. I'm like, that's happening today. That's a thing. Um, but yeah, back to travels. What other things would you say you've learned from travels that have been a big deal for you in your life? What have you taken from it?
Uh, I think it would be that something will always go wrong, but that's okay because when you're in traveling, things go wrong all the time. All the time. You could be
Yeah.
missing your bus, missing your overnight bus or whatever it is, and then or getting bumped on a flight or the flight gets canceled or whatever it might be. There's so many things that go wrong in traveling, and I don't think people understand that. You
Yeah.
know that somebody's new to traveling when they get really stressed out when there's a rescheduled flight or something.
Yeah.
And it just taught me that most of the time, the worst thing, not the worst thing, but something will always go wrong, but that's okay. And it can add to, it'll be a part of your experience and you'll learn to laugh about it later.
Hmm. Exactly. And you know what? The crazy part about that is it's actually like people don't care for your good stories. And I was like, ah, good story, boring. And you come back with this like huge, terrible ordeal, which for you at the time was literally the most stressful thing ever. And like so many things like, you know, essentially went wrong. But that's the story that you find yourself telling years later over and over again
Exactly.
because like it just captures people's attention. I think it's like the it's why people love slapstick humor. They're just like, yeah, you had a hard time. I'm gonna enjoy this.
And that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And at least you get to laugh about it later, then it's not as bad as you think it is. And half the time when you're stressed about something, and I think I definitely learned this from travel as well, when you're stressed about something and normally 2 weeks later, you're gonna be like, what was I stressed about?
Yes. Yeah.
It's
And you forget all about it. It's one of those things, hey, like that's so useful in the moment too, to like recall that yes, this is difficult, but this difficult kind of stuff has happened before. And look where I am now, not even thinking about it. Just remembering that in the moment can help you to really like de-escalate things.
right.
Amazing. All right. Well, we're sort of we're creeping up on about an hour and a half nearly now. We've been at it. I warned you once we get talking, it can go for a bit.
That's okay.
So I usually finish. I like to finish with sort of a general round of questions. And they're just basic stuff, which I've always loved to hear as well, because you know people who are inspired by you and are looking out to maybe even be mentored by you, they're going to love the answers that you give to these following questions. So the first one is books that you love, maybe you keep coming back to them, or that are just purely inspirational for you. Like, for example, for me, The Alchemist and Le Petit Prince are like two very, like every year we'll read those books. I love going back to them. So
Mm.
inspirational, guide my life in many ways. Do you have anything like that?
I do. I have two books that also come to mind, and I mentioned one of them already, Steal Like an Artist.
Feel like an artist. I did write that down.
I can't remember who it was by. And then The One Thing
The one
by
thing.
Gary Keller, I think his name is Keller. Um,
So, what did Feel
but
Like an Artist teach you?
that was the one about basically you don't need to reinvent the wheel to get started.
Yeah.
You can start by copying people and then you eventually make your own version of these things. You don't have to be original just to start. You just need to start to get better. And
Yes.
eventually you'll get there. And he has a lot of little ones. It's literally that big and it's a mostly a doodling picture book, but he has a lot of great insights in there, especially for designers, but anybody in a creative space, a creative mindset. And I'd say that the one thing is really about focusing on, the one most important thing that makes everything else easier. And
Mm,
once you get that one most important thing out of the way, everything is easier. You can just keep going, but it's about looking at your most important priorities. If you have a 5-year goal, you can break that down to what is the most important thing you can do right now that will drive those goals and help you reach them easier rather than busying yourself with emails and useless things on the side that just keep you busy.
Mm-hmm. So for you, what's the one thing?
The one thing, it's networking. Networking and connections with people is my number one priority every day.
The same message I keep getting, no matter how many times I ask it or questions I ask myself in reflections and think about it, it's always that. It is like purely that. Like that is the basis of everything. It's like the foundation at the foot of a great skyscraper of life. It's your relationships is everything. I'm definitely going
Exactly.
to learn more about that. That's awesome. Okay, next question is people who inspired you. So I love the books because people like to read, but who are the people that inspired you? They may even be those people from those books, but who's your mentor? You talk a lot about mentoring. Who's your mentor? Who's your role model that you got all your inspiration from?
Yes, I have two role models. One of them is Joanna Galvao. I think that's how you pronounce her name, her last name. She has her own digital agency for website design, branding design, and things like that
Mm-hmm.
in Portugal. And she's originally from the UK, and her husband moved out there to start an agency. And now she has 6 people, and she teaches a lot of people as well. And she's helped me so much with my business. And then Aisha Shapiro as well is who I'm working with, and she is my bigger picture lady and always
Mm-hmm.
helps me to just stay on track and to enhance those connections that I'm making and create communities rather than just one-on-one connections.
Okay. Perfect. Is there a way that people who are listening could find those guys as mentors as well? Like, do they have their own
Yes.
Instagrams, web pages, anything like
Yes,
that?
absolutely. You can find both of them on Instagram if that's the easiest way, or I believe the social media platforms are all pretty much the same. Um, they're all pretty much the same on every social media. So Joanna Belval, you can find her through her name or through her agency, which is Gift Design Studios.
Gift Design Studios. Okay. I'll make sure I
Yes.
put that in the blurb for this podcast.
And then Aisha's community is called Launch Your Fempire. So it's specifically more for women and creating a safe space for women and
That is a solid
coaching them in their
name.
business.
Launch your fempire. That's powerful. That's very powerful stuff. Okay. Well, I just heard that dinner's ready on your side of the planet. So we'll finish up with, uh, I guess, the final question. And this question comes from the last guest on the show, and you know her. A last guest I had on the show was Kelly Campbell.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
It's a
So
great person to have on your show.
yes, it was, and I actually want to get her straight back on as well because like she's got so much to say. It's amazing. Um, so her question that she left for you was she didn't know it was you. Was what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail?
Oh my goodness. I've been asked this question quite a lot, actually.
Hmm.
And it's always hard for me, but I honestly think right now it's public speaking because
Hmm.
public speaking has always been such a scary thing for me, really. But I I know in the back of my head that I can do it, but it's always the fear is always keeping me back.
Uh-huh. It's so now you're going to face that fear and you're going to jump into it and just go for it.
Yes, I can't even think about it. That's like a huge thing is I just have to go without thinking.
Brilliant. Okay, well, the last thing to do before we wrap it all up today is for you to leave a question. So if I don't know if you have a question prepared, I should probably foreshadow this before just dropping it on you. But what question do you want to leave for the next person on the show?
Oh my goodness. This is a really hard one to think of on the spot.
Doesn't have to be particularly
Maybe.
like deeper or insightful or anything. It can just be a fun one too. Yeah, yeah. Whatever it may be.
Did you gain anything from doing this particular podcast? Because I know I did.
Did you gain anything
Any value?
from doing this podcast? Okay. Yes, podcast. Still writing it down. All right. That'll be perfect. Suppose if you want to find out the answer, you'll have to listen to the next episode.
I will. I will. I also want to
Uh,
listen to Kelly's. I didn't know that you
as
had one with her.
Yeah, so Kelly's actually isn't up yet. It'll still be a little while away. I've got a backlog from my travels that I'm releasing them every Monday at this point. Not officially, I wouldn't say it's like gonna always be Monday, but at this point, Monday 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for Australia, specifically,
Nice.
there'll be a new episode coming out. So watch this space. But
I
Soph,
will. I
thank you
will.
so much for coming on to the show today. I really appreciate you spending all this time with me. It's been really nice to see your face again. I'm so happy for you that your business is starting to take off after all these years of hard work which you've put in, and you're starting to, move into a realm of where you want to be. I'm excited to see where this public speaking
Thank you.
takes you and how it adds to your gigantic sort of goal that you're working towards, and and hopefully we'll get a chance to come and catch up with you either A in the States or B in Hawaii when I come around later this year. So
Oh yes, absolutely. I believe I will be in Hawaii if you're gonna be there in the summer.
there you go. Well, I will be there this summer, so I'll see you then.
Yay!
All right. Well, thank you very much. And
Thank you very
that's a
much,
wrap
Joseph.
for Between Views. Thank you for listening to part 3 of the interview with Sophia. If you enjoyed what you heard, please jump over and give Sophia a follow, or go and check out the Mellow concept. Also, remember that the best way you can support this podcast is by liking and following Between Views on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Or you can caffeinate Between Views at buymeacoffee.com/betweenviews. Also, if you know someone inspirational who deserves to be interviewed, or you just have some feedback for the show, please send us an email at betweenviewsbv@gmail.com, or give us a message on Instagram. Thanks again, and see you soon. Between Views.